Hey guys, got here fresh from the funeral for my game that lasted one day before Todd Howard dropped Oblivion Remake, literally. So today I want to go over the killer stats that Behaviour just released. I love stats, and I like seeing how they differ between Nightlight, which is sort of the community stats that have been kind of gathered by just people that have the actual program itself, basically, and I like just comparing the two and seeing what is crazy and what is not. Now, important thing to note about a lot of these things is when we have stats like these, they are usually not super in-depth, but it is the closest thing we have to an accurate assessment of what their actual stats are, because we just use Nightlight to basically guess. It's probably pretty accurate within a couple of percent, but we don't actually know for sure exactly what percentages of all these things are. So it's really nice to get these every once in a while. Now, it's important to note that this is between January and March. So the reason you don't see the ghoul here, obviously, at the highest killer picks is because the ghoul didn't exist yet. So obviously the ghoul is by far the most picked killer in the game, the entire game's history at that point. It's like a 25% pick rate right now. But this is right before the ghoul was added, so that's why he's not here. So it's cool. They separate it between low MMR and high MMR, and it's good we actually have numbers here just to make sure that they're still using the same system, because for those who don't know, 1800 MMR is what's known as the soft cap, and it's good to see confirmation that that's still what they're using. The soft cap is basically everybody above that point can go against each other. So whether you have 8 trillion MMR or 1801 MMR, you guys can still go against each other. It's still going to prioritize going for the people that are closer together, but the point is you're going to be able to get matched with basically anybody above that amount. And the whole complaints with the system is that cap is just way too easy to get to. Thus, the MMR system barely does anything. It just separates, brand new baby players with everybody else. So that's like the whole criticism against the whole system, but it's good to see reinforcement that that is the number that they're still using. So we try to piece together what the hell the MMR values and stuff like that actually are, just from leaks of certain things, Fiddler getting some other things, and we have a decent picture of what it's like. But anyway, I just wanted to go over that as confirmation that 1800 is still the soft cap. So let's go. Low MMR, Huntress being high makes a lot of sense. She's a free killer. You don't have to purchase her or anything like that, so her having a high kill rate because she's actually very strong, especially against new players, makes a lot of sense. Then we have Wesker, Blight, Wraith, and Legion. I definitely understand Wraith and Legion in low MMR. Wraith, even at high MMR, is pretty good. Legion is not a very good killer against good players that know how to separate, but against bad players that are too scared to remain injured and they always group up, Legion absolutely dominates. Blight being this high is kind of surprising to me, because Blight is not super free in terms of winning. You have to know how to play a little bit. I'm not saying he's super hard or anything, but for a brand new player to the game, Blight is one of the more difficult killers to control. So I'm kind of surprised to even see him on the lower MMR list. Wesker makes sense, pretty simple as well, although there's a very high skill ceiling with Wesker as well. But Huntress being here makes perfect sense. A lot of newer players tend to rely on things like proxy camping or just straight up camping entirely, and Huntress is extremely good at that. So and that makes a lot of sense. Now for high MMR, Blight being on the top, yeah, of course, that's sort of a no-brainer. Obviously, the ghoul is there right now, but Blight being at the top makes sense. Wesker being there makes sense. Huntress and Nurse also makes sense. Freddy is the one where I'm kind of confused, but then I realized since this is January to March, this is kind of when the Freddy rework was still new. So anytime you have a rework for something like that, the kill rates are going to be higher and the pick rate is going to be higher. Because I really don't see Freddy ever anymore. In fact, if we go to Nightlight, I bet Freddy's pick rate is... It's 1.4%. It's very, very low now. So this is just because this was right off the heels of the Freddy rework. He's not that high anymore. But everything else here seems accurate. Huntress is just so consistently, since 2017, just always in the top 5 most picked killers, every single time. She's so consistent. And then, everyone loves Wesker still. And Nurse and high MMR obviously makes a lot of sense. So all this tracks. Nothing too crazy here. That is all self-explanatory stuff. Now, in terms of deadliest killers, so like I just said, the kill rates for killers that have been recently reworked is typically always inflated and higher than they actually are, because people don't know how to counter the thing yet. So there's usually a period of a couple of weeks where their kill rates are way higher than they will. And for example, the ghoul's kill rates right now on Nightlight, is pretty damn high, but I'm willing to bet this is going to actually drop slightly as well. And surprisingly, 62% is not such a crazy outlier. to where it's like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Like, yeah, it's high. It's definitely on the higher end, but there are killers that have, 60, 62, 60, 61% kill rates. Granted, this is among the highest, but we're not off by that many percent. So that was kind of crazy for me to see, like, at least in terms of like, kill rates and stuff like that. For a new killer that's extremely powerful, only a 62% kill rate, I actually thought it would be even higher than that. So that was actually surprising to me. But anyway, so the deadliest killers, Freddy being here, obviously is not indicative of reality. His kill rates have gone down probably about 10% by now. This is just because he was brand new. Now, for number 2 on high MMR, Twins being 69%, that makes a lot of sense, and I don't see that really dropping. If we go to actually Twins, who is probably all the way at the bottom here. Yeah, there she is, literally at the bottom. Interestingly, from Nightlight, the kill rate is 47%. So this is where I start to question the disparity in stats. How is Nightlight showing a 47% kill rate and Behavior is telling us that there's a 69% kill rate? Now, personally, I'm more inclined to believe this because Twins is really good and very few people play the Twins, and those that do play the Twins typically are good at the Twins, meaning they're using an extremely strong killer and a killer they're good at. Their kill rate is going to be disproportionately high. So the fact that it's 47% on Nightlight, I find not even accurate. I think this is a far more realistic interpretation of what her actual kill rate and high MMR would actually be, because she is an absolute monster, and I am so grateful basically no one plays her. Again, Blight being deadliest, no big deal. Nurse and Spirit, these are all no-brainers. I'm surprised Dracula's not there. Dracula's probably like right here. But yeah, everything here makes sense except Freddy, who was only here because of the recent rework he got, and that's the time period when this was taking place. But everything else here makes perfect sense. Interestingly, we have Twins on the low MMR number 3 as well. That is surprising to me because the Twins is a little bit more complicated than your standard new, basic Wraith killer. Even like Hillbilly, while mechanically intensive, you just go fast in line with Saw. It's not that complicated. Twins requires a decent amount of like macro knowledge to know when to use Victor, when to spread it out, when to start snowballing. Like, it requires a decent amount of knowledge. So to see that she still has that high of a kill rate is kind of crazy in a low MMR setting where people are not going to be as good. Vecna being at 66% in low MMR kind of makes sense to me because a lot of people don't understand. They can probably duck under Flight of the Damned. They might not understand to drop pallets early for Mage Hand, things like that. So not knowing the counterplay can make Vecna seem way stronger than he actually is. Sadako's another example. She's always consistently on the higher end of low MMR kill rates because her side objective is not immediately clear and it's a bit more confusing to new players. So they end up getting condemned a lot more than a player that knows how to play the game. Dredge is another great example of low MMR differences where Dredge and high MMR is kind of not good at all. He's like a C-tier killer in my opinion, except on a few maps like Midwich where he's actually very good. Dredge is way too map dependent to be a good killer. But against new players, Nightfall, if you don't know map layouts, Nightfall is one of the strongest things in the game. So for low MMR, that actually makes perfect sense. So I am not surprised to see Dredge doing pretty well at the low MMR settings. Now, in terms of escape rates, this is the stuff I actually like seeing because this does give the best overall basic descriptor of overall balance in DBD. I know there are a million nuances there, and I know it's not simple, but it's the closest thing we have to a general descriptor of balance in DBD. Again, I'll reiterate one more time. I know there are so many caveats to this, and there are so many exceptions. Oh, what about a guy that just greeted, even though there were, the killer got one hook and he hooked one guy at the end game and they all try to get altruism, then he gets a 3K. Oh, now that's a 3K. Like, I understand that, but you also have to take into account for the fact that regardless of how you arrive at these scenarios, that is the outcome of the match. In that scenario, even if the killer had 0 kills the entire game and then altruism got more people killed, that means that that's more often than not how games go, and thus that is mostly accurate to how an actual match of DBD is. You can't think of these scenarios where everyone's going to be a perfect comp squad. Someone's out there like, all right, let's get our 3 out. We got to score as many points as possible. Most people just don't really play like that. So it's not indicative to the actual game. So that's why I reiterate, although there are definitely, nuances and stuff like that to it, this is the most accurate general descriptor we have of DBD's balance. So solo queue escape rate, 42%. What's interesting is the solo queue escape rate is higher than the 2-person escape rate. And you know why? I think that actually makes perfect sense because if you're solo queue, you're more inclined to just get out and just just escape, and that's really all you care about. When you're playing with a friend, you're probably more inclined to do some silly shit. You might set up some dumb head-on plays or some boil-over plays, or someone's trying to get Metal a Man off of you, or like you're trying to do some flashlight saves. When you have a friend with you, it's more likely you're going to try to do some dumb shit that's not just trying to escape the match. While in solo queue, you don't have the coordination to even try that, so you're just focusing your objective solely. So the fact that there's a lower escape rate for these actually makes a lot of sense to me. That is actually pretty understandable. Now, granted, that is for low MMR or just overall MMR, but it mostly rings true even in high MMR. So I just found that funny that the solo queue escape rate is actually a bit higher than 2 people. Now, once you start getting the 3 people, even if they're screwing around, we're starting to get a lot of coordination to where it's going to be harder for killer. And then once we get all the way up to 4-man, you can see the difference. Low MMR 4-mans, it doesn't matter. They're not good. It just, whether they're friends or not, doesn't change the fact that they're not good at the game. So they're still not escaping much. But when you actually see a strong 4-man, that's when you start seeing escape rates not even getting to 50%, but approaching 50%. So that is where, obviously, it's a no-brainer. 4-man survive with friends are the strongest thing the killer can go against. That's just how it's been since the game has come out, and that's really never going to change. So that is mostly what I thought the rates would be at right now. The thing is, though, 4-man survive with friends are the least likely lobby you are to encounter. At least based on their ult statistics, it was a pretty low amount. You are far more likely to encounter any of these. And yeah, a full 4-man survive with friends is very rare. So although this escape rate might be high, which again, it really isn't, it's still less than half, but it might seem high, it's also far, far less likely that you encounter a 4-man survive with friends. The amount of time, I probably, in 4 hours of playing DBD day, I probably go against maybe 2 or 3 actual 4-man survive with friends a day. Like, it's not a particularly common thing, and I know a lot of people like to, convince themselves that what they're going against actually is, but I mean, at least on Steam, it's pretty easy to see if they're even just on their friends list. Like, you can verify these things. But it's not super common. But even at the strongest thing that a survivor can bring, the escape rate is still 48.2%, which is not that crazy. Again, I understand this is not super accurate stuff like that, but it's the closest thing we've got to data. So, unsurprisingly, coordinated groups playing in high MMR performed best, of course, resulting in the highest escape rate. Interestingly, solo queue players in the wider MMR bracket proved to be particularly hardy, falling above the overall escape rate. I do find that funny, and it is solely because in solo queue, you're not going to fuck around. You're just going to do the objective and try to leave. So that is pretty funny that solo queue is actually more likely to have an escape than when people are grouped up most of the time. That tickled me. That was pretty interesting. So that's it. That is all the data we have for now. I would still love to see more, but this was actually pretty interesting to look at. I love looking at the stuff, and it's a bit more than the usual very basic stuff they give us. So that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.